Two U.S. service members were killed in Afghanistan Wednesday during an operation against the Afghanistan-based Islamic State group in Nangarhar province in the eastern part of the country. The deaths follow a massive Taliban attack last week that killed hundreds of Afghan army soldiers at a mosque on an army base in the north of the country. The gunmen and suicide bombers were disguised as fellow Afghan soldiers. It's reported to be one of the deadliest attacks on an Afghan military base since the war started. And for the latest now on this deadly series of attacks in Afghanistan, we are joined on Skype from Islamabad by VOA journalist and war correspondent Ayaz and right here in Washington by VOA Afghan Service Special Projects Manager Ibrahim Nasar. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us today. But Ayaz, I'm going to talk to you first. So before we get to the Taliban attacks, Ayaz, what can you tell us about the Wednesday evening operation against Islamic State that apparently killed 2 American soldiers and injured 1? What kind of an operation was that? What were they targeting?
Well, there has been an Afghan army-led operation going on in this district or in this province of Afghanistan, which is eastern Nangarhar province. And the American Air Force has been providing air power to this operation. That's been going on for several weeks. And as part of that operation, and in clearing some areas on the ground, the U.S. personnel were actually assisting the Afghan special forces. And that's when they came under attack. I mean, we have been given very few details by the U.S. military, but what we understand that in that ambush, 2 American soldiers got killed and 1 was wounded.
So the fact that Americans are targeting Islamic State in that part of the country, does that mean that Daesh is gaining a foothold in Afghanistan, Ayaz?
Well, until recently, yes. They were quickly spreading their roots, especially in eastern Afghanistan. But, you know, this operation that I mentioned, ever since the Afghan security forces have started that operation with the help of American Air Force, they have significantly reduced the number of their fighters. And, you know, let me tell you that Daesh or Islamic State does not face only attacks from the U.S. military and Afghan forces, but it is also facing attacks by the Taliban, because Taliban really does not want them to create problems for them on the battlefield, because they really have a serious rivalry between the two of them. And so Daesh or Islamic State is really finding it difficult to expand beyond certain eastern districts of Afghanistan.
That aspect of the rivalry is interesting, but first I want to get to Ibrahim. Of course, the big story was that major assault by the Taliban at that Afghan army base. How does something like that happen in what we assume has to be a major Afghan fortification? How does that happen?
I think I would call this complacency of the Afghan security forces. They have taken soft targets as something beyond attacks by the Taliban. But Taliban have been attacking soft targets. I mean, this happened inside a mosque. Actually, it was a prayer time, so they were letting people, even if these people were ready. I mean, they were dressed as Afghan soldiers. They went in an Afghan military vehicle, and they were let in because they were supposed to go to a mosque inside that base, so people could go inside.
So they did not know that they were armed? They did not know what their intentions were?
They didn't know that they were Taliban. They thought they were ordinary soldiers who were going inside to that military base, to a mosque for prayer. So they went inside, I mean, they killed people in the mosque and also in their cafeteria. But Taliban have attacked soft targets before that. I mean, just recently they attacked the largest hospital inside Kabul. I mean, they killed doctors, nurses, and patients. So Taliban are people who are terrorizing people just to show that Afghanistan is unstable. There can't be any stable government, and areas are out of reach of Afghan government. So that's the kind of a strategy they're moving forward. And I would also call this big intelligence failure than military failure. It was the responsibility of intelligence, I mean, to tell the Afghan security forces if insurgents could go because they don't have bases inside Afghanistan.
So as a result, there had been already a number of resignations. So essentially, some army officials are basically taking responsibility for that failure.
I think this is something that positive after this incident happened, that the top officials are taking responsibility, the defense ministers and also the Afghan military chief. resigned
Right.
from their posts, and they've been replaced recently by.
Okay, and Ayaz, I'm wondering, could the Taliban attack earlier this week be a type of retaliation for that massive bomb that was dropped by the U.S. military 2 weeks ago, the one they call the mother of all bombs?
Well, if you read the Afghan newspapers and watch the primetime talk shows, that's what even Afghan analysts in Kabul are suggesting, that the Taliban attack was basically a retaliation to send a message to the American military that if they will use these kind of bombs, then they are prepared to undertake these kind of massive attacks. And I think we are going to see quite a bloody fighting season with these kind of activities. If the US military is prepared to use these kind of massive weapons, and the Taliban are going to kill people indiscriminately the way they did last week, this is going to be a tough fighting year for both the sides. And that's, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, when he was in Kabul earlier this week, he also warned that this will be a tough year for even Afghan security forces.
Ibrahim, have we heard reaction from the Afghanistan government to U.S. deployment of this MOAB bomb? I mean, this has never been used before by the U.S. military, and of course, Afghanistan seems to be the most obvious choice all of a sudden. Are people upset about this?
No, people are, I would say, not upset. I mean, the government has welcomed it. Even the ambassador, Afghan ambassador in the United States, welcomed this, saying it killed a large number of Daesh or ISIS militants and even their leaders. And some of them were from other countries, including India, Pakistan, and I guess Uzbekistan. So they are saying, I mean, we need force against insurgents, be that Taliban, be that ISIS. And local people also have welcomed this. People who have suffered in the Achin district of Nangarhar province, they say, well, it didn't do any civilian casualties, so they are sick and tired of Daesh in that area. But I personally say force might be needed, but it's not the solution. There should be other efforts to bring people together and also take out the sanctuaries of militant groups outside Afghanistan. So this is what the Afghan government and the former Afghan government has been saying, that, and Afghan analysts, if you talk to them, so the war in Afghanistan cannot be won unless sanctuaries provided by other countries outside Afghanistan to militants are taken out.
Ayaz, getting back to the Taliban attack, what does it tell you about Afghan security procedures? Are changes now likely as a result of what happened there?
Well, as you know, today the Taliban formally launched its so-called spring offensive across Afghanistan. And this attack, came at a time when the Taliban were really overrunning districts in rural parts of Afghanistan. And right now they are in control of, if you go by the US military assessment, 10% of the territory is under the control of the Taliban and 25% is contested, where either it is in the control of the Taliban or under their influence. So if you keep that in mind, it's a huge territory, and that shows the Afghan government will really find it difficult to maintain or to bring security to these areas during this fighting season. So the security situation is quite, is deteriorating and has a challenging situation.
I'm out of time, but can you tell me if this is affecting morale within the Afghan army very quickly?
Well, obviously, these number of people killed in one attack, obviously
that's got to hurt, right? Thank you for your reporting. Ayaz Gul and Ibrahim Nasar, we appreciate you helping us out here. We're taking a short break now, but when we come back, Donald Trump is marking his first 100 days as president. What has he accomplished, and what future battles are in store for the new administration?